All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It's good to see everybody. We'll be in chapter 15, Exodus chapter 15 here. When we start with our new material here in just a moment. As far as bringing us up to speed, getting our minds kind of back on track with where we are in our story, we're following the children of Israel, and we've seen them as slaves in Egypt for a long time, and we've seen the Lord choose Moses to go to Pharaoh, and he told Pharaoh that, Israel is my firstborn. You need to let them go, and if you don't, I'm going to require your firstborn. And we saw all the Lord's plagues come upon Egypt, and the way that he brought Egypt to their knees, really, and through that. And then we saw through that 10th plague how they left, and now they are no longer. Austin was mentioning just now, they're no longer in Egyptian bondage. That's the Bible period that they were in. But now, what Bible period? I guess I hadn't even thought about that. Are we in now? We're in the wilderness. Yes, wilderness wanderings. We've officially entered into that one. So that's when we change Bible periods. It's always a good point to make that that we're now in a new period. But anyway, they've left. What did they take with them? Yeah, they're very wealthy. They're former slaves who probably, they maybe have nice clothes on now. I don't know some of the clothes they plundered, but they're a bunch of slaves who have left, and they don't really, they don't have a lot of organization, and they're eventually going to the land of Canaan. That's where they're going to, but they've left with a lot of stuff. But is this a stressful situation for them, do you think? I mean, it's a happy, kind of in a lot of ways, they're out of slavery now, right? They have a lot of money and stuff. But is it a stressful situation for them? Why would you say so? This is definitely a big change. Yeah. Unknown. Yeah, the unknown. Yeah, that stresses us out today, doesn't it? When, even though things are going good, a lot of the unknown aspects of life do stress us out.
Yeah, Egypt.
Yeah, go ahead.
In Egypt, it wasn't good, but they knew it was going to happen the next day. It'd be horrible, but they knew it was going to happen.
We're going to see them reference back to that some today as well. But yeah, so they got last class we talked about. They left, and the way that they went, they wandered around down by the Red Sea and camped there, which we know the story that led up to. Militarily, that was a horrible decision. Pharaoh pursued. They were backed up against the sea there, had nowhere to go. But we saw how the cloud that the Lord had been leading them by, moved and kind of protected them from the rear, and how the waters parted and how they crossed, and how amazing and awestruck they should have been from that. And then how the Lord finally defeated Pharaoh's army through the waters coming back together, and the confusion that he caused them and all that. And Israel through God just defeated the most powerful army in the world without ever having to fight a single person in that army. So imagine being them after that just happened, and Egyptians are washing up on the shore, and you're just standing there like, that was pretty amazing. So they've defeated the Egyptians officially now, and we left off with the song, and we won't go back through it. But what's their attitude at this point? Praising God. Very uplifted, very confident in the Lord's abilities, right, through that song. And I truly believe that they felt that way, and we're gonna see that waver, and I don't think that this is false. I think they really felt that way. We need to remember that as we see kind of their attitude going forth in some of these other circumstances. But we just left off with this very strong sense of the Lord and His power and His might and our protector there through the point in verse 15 that we got to. So is there anything anybody wants to say? That was my little bit of review leading up to where we are now before we start.
I might also mention that one thing we've seen a lot, even in the last, or I guess the chapter we're in now, in chapter 15, well, it would be the previous chapter. But what we've seen a lot of is a lot of God focusing on Egypt. As far as Egypt will know who I am, Egypt will learn who I am. And I think what we're going to see here, with even where we're starting right off the bat, is we're going to see God focusing not on Egypt anymore, but He's going to be focusing on the Israelites. And it's not that He wasn't focused on them knowing who He was, but you definitely see the shift of, I need to get the Israelites to understand who I am. There will be a lot of work on that tonight. So.
Okay. Well, we will begin tonight with verse 22 there in chapter 15. It says, so Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, where they had just crossed, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Now when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah, which means bitter. And the people complained against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? So we have a very real situation here. 3 days into a hike through the wilderness here. And when we say wilderness, what are we describe it? What kind of wilderness is this? Yeah, the wilderness is there. We're a lot different than they are here. It's a very barren area, and they don't have any water, which is a legit problem when you have that many people and you don't have water. So there is an issue. But what is there? You know, how do they handle this stressful situation? Yeah, they complained to Moses again, and we're going to see that. And when I went back and listened to the last time we covered this, I think it was Larson, made a good point. You know, there are stressful times that we have in life, but I wrote it down here. He said, without proper perspective, life is just one crisis after another, right? And that's got a lot of truth to it. When you lose your focus, it just seems like there's one major crisis, and sometimes we let those things grow a little larger in our mind than they should. But they do have a stressful situation here, being without water. So in verse 25, he cried out to the Lord, Moses, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them, and said, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you, which I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, so they camped there by the waters. So, again, the Lord looked after them. He provided water there on that occasion from this tree that was put there, and then he led them to an area where there was enough, where there was plenty there, 12 wells and some trees and things there that were growing. So God's teaching them to depend on Him through this. He's teaching them to rely on Him. And they still haven't grasped that when they get in a stressful situation. Each time we see that they haven't quite grasped that idea. But He's working on them in this way. He's testing them. What comments do you have about that situation?
maybe worth noting here. So God describes himself as their healer. I think there may be a couple things that we can say about this, but the two things I want to point out. First of all, he is their healer, right? He's their God. He's their healer. He's going to make emphasis of this over and over and over again, that he is their God and they're his people. Like, so there's supposed to be a connection there. They don't need to forget that. So that's one thing. But I think the second thing is maybe what I said was misleading. So I'm not focusing on the healer part as much. But what I want to focus on is he's their healer, and he won't put any of the diseases he put on the Egyptians on them, if what? If they follow his commandments and ordinances and whatever else it says there. They have to be obedient. We're going to see that over and over and over again as well. And I think the reason we're going to see that over and over and over again is because they're going to struggle with it over and over and over again. And just to go with what Lucas was saying, talking about like in our lives, I'm guessing there are things in our lives we struggle with over and over and over and over again. And I imagine if we had an open commentary with God, probably wouldn't look very different than it does with the Israelites, where he would be saying the same things over and over and over again. Be committed to me. Obey me. I will be there for you, but you have to obey me. And I would imagine, we look at Israelites and we're like, I mean, you've just seen him protect you from, like, destroy the Egyptians, basically, and then protect you from him, bring you through waters that you weren't supposed to be able to cross through, and then just provide you water here. Like, why would you ever turn away from that? But it's probably a lot more human and a lot more like this than we like to admit. And I think that's worth thinking about as well.
I agree. Okay. So going into verse 16, they're still in the wilderness here, and they're still journeying here, and they still have some of these same issues. I may go about the first three, then I may let you take a section there. So we'll begin the first verse. They journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt. So just a couple points there before we move much farther. It's the second month and the 15th day, so it's been exactly 1 month since, the Passover situation. It was the first month and the 15th day there. So it's been 1 month since that has happened. Just a time reference there since they left Egypt. Bob made the point in his book, they could have already been to the land of Canaan if they'd have just took a straight shot. A month's journey, they could have already made it to their destination. Why do you think that the Lord didn't do that? Yeah, they're not ready yet for that. They're not ready for going in and conquering a land and things. They're still figuring out, to trust in the Lord and these other situations, and they're just I don't believe that they're ready for that. If they were, he maybe would have took them that way, but it doesn't seem like they're ready for that. Also, the wilderness of Sin there, just a note, it's a variation of the name Sinai is the name that is given there. I don't think it has anything to do with disobedience or anything in the name. Just it's a form of the word Sinai, which is the mountain that's there.
So it's
Sinai, I guess maybe we've been saying it wrong, or maybe it's wilderness of Sin. I'm not sure. It's like a math deal, but I don't know. Look that up. That's your homework. That's your homework for next time. Yeah. But anyway, verse 2, the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, "Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly, with hunger." So again, stressful situation. They're hungry, and I think they are legit hungry. They're not just being babies about this, but they don't have any food. There's no food. Imagine if you were out there alone trying to browse around and find enough to eat in these type areas. But this is, a couple million people here. There's not enough resources there the way that they have went for them to be able to just, scrounge around and find food. It's just not there. There's not enough there, and they realize this, and they're stressed about it. They complain, but in doing this, maybe they could have came to Moses in a more respectful way than it seems like they do over and over again. I'm not sure, but they're worried about this. They're worried that they're going to starve here, and they say we'd just been better off dying in Egypt. And when they say that, though, that just what was it like in Egypt? They were killing your children, right? That was what was going on in Egypt. They were literally killing your children. Do we sometimes say things in ways that we shouldn't when we are stressed? I think we could all probably say yes. We don't say things the way that we should, and maybe it's a legit message we're trying to relay, but we don't always say it under the most composed. I don't know what the word I'm looking for there is, but we're not as composed as we should be. We don't word things, and we're not as respectful with things sometimes when we're under stress. And I can sympathize with that. I had a note made there that I could sympathize with that. But they're hungry, and that's the situation. You have anything?
Well, just literally the last thing you said. So they're hungry this time. It's not the same thing as before, right? So they're complaining again. They're like, why didn't you listen? Well, it's kind of different. So maybe that's the reason they haven't learned their lesson yet, because this is now hunger and not thirst. I don't know. But still make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's the way it goes. You want to cover that?
Yeah.
All right, let's pick up verse 4. We'll read through verse 12. Then the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I'm about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, At evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against the Lord. For what are we that you grumble against us? And Moses said, When the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling that you grumble against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, Say to the whole assembly of the people of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, At twilight you shall eat meat, in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. All right, so they're complaining about not having anything. They're very hungry. I think Lucas is right. This is a legitimate complaint as far as they are hungry. How does God deal with this? He says, I'm going to provide what you need. Okay? I'm going to provide what you need. Now, there are actually several reasons given for why he's doing this here, right? Give me some reasons about why he's providing for their need. You see the glory of the Lord. They'll know who he is.
So they should be filled.
They'll be filled. Okay, good. So actually fulfill the need.
So they'll know they're grumbling against the Lord.
They'll know they're grumbling. And he's heard their grumbling.
He's heard their complaints.
He's heard their complaints.
He's listening to it.
And he knows it's against him and not Moses and Aaron. And I also think about in verse 4, he says, I'm about to rain bread from heaven for you, and people should go out and gather a day's portion every day. Why? He's testing them. All right? What is he testing them in? If they're going to heed his instructions. So we see he hears them. He cares about their complaints. He's not necessarily happy with their complaints, right? He's not happy that they're complaining against him, but he hears them. And he's willing to fulfill their needs. He wants them to understand that he is their God. He's the one that has power. He's in control. And he's also testing them. So this fills several purposes for him. It shows his care, but it also shows that he wants people to prove that they are as committed in this relationship as he is. And we'll find out if they are or not. What are the stipulations on this? With what? First of all, what is he giving them? Maybe I should go back to that. What is he giving them? All right, bread and meat. What were they complaining about? bread and meat. They said, we used to sit by the meat pots and eat bread to the full. And so, as he said, I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. I think that's kind of the interesting thing to note, that they complained about meat and bread. He gave them meat and bread. What order does that fall in?
Meat first.
Yeah, meat in the evening, bread in the morning. Okay, now, what are the conditions on this? What is he testing them on?
Just gather what you need for that day only.
Gather what you need for that day only.
On the sixth day, you gather double.
And in the last, 6th day, you gather double for the 7th day. And why would that be important?
The Sabbath. Of the rest on that Sabbath.
That's right. So it's the Sabbath day. You're supposed to rest on the 7th day. And so he's going to see, are you going to follow my law or not? I'm providing for you. You came to me grumbling and complaining. I'm providing for you. Will you listen to me? And we'll see what happens there. Y'all have anything else you want to add to that?
They've had 4 rest days roughly up to this.
Talking about a month? Yeah. I guess.
You're talking about Sabbaths. We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't know that they understand that yet. It's the first time that it's mentioned, and it seems that they maybe just don't understand that that's, I don't know, maybe there have been 4, but it doesn't seem like they're very clear on that the Sabbath day is different in some ways anyway. I think Bob made mention of that too, that it's not been made mention yet anywhere in the scripture that they were to observe that and for the reason. But we'll look at that here in just a minute when he mentions the 6th day and the 7th day, that some of them didn't heed that, you know. So y'all can chime in on that in just a moment.
Yeah. Right.
He's trying to show them that later on his attitude is a little bit different. Right now, he doesn't take any credit for anything that's happened.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, like, why are you grumbling against us? Like, what are we? Right? I think he says that twice, maybe 2 or 3 times. What are we? And so when you're grumbling, you're not really grumbling against us because we're not in control.
Maybe it's something God is trying to teach them to, and don't wear their strength and their man,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they need comes from Him.
Yeah.
So He's trying to teach them that too.
I think you're exactly right. I think we'll especially see this when we get to the next section, when it gets put into practice and we see what happens if they don't listen. I think we'll definitely see it's like God's trying to, I think, make that point of you depend upon me and you need me. Yeah.
They fully don't trust you just yet, and that's why you have to take them straight to Canaan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you brought up earlier, why didn't he take them straight to Canaan? It's like, well, they weren't ready for war. Well, are they even ready to listen to how they're supposed to take up their food? Well, they're not ready to do that either.
They
So
can't even follow these simple instructions.
they're not ready for the simple stuff.
You know, they outside for them to get all the law, you know.
Yeah. Like, this doesn't require any courage. This just gathered up. You don't have the law yet, so that would be important, right? You don't have that. So how are you going to be ready to take the land?
Okay, so this is a very interesting story here. It says in 13, so it was that quails came up at evening and covered the camp. And in the morning, the dew lay all around the camp. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance, as fine as frost on the ground. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, this is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's need, 1 omer for each person, according to the number of persons. Let every man take for those who are in his tent. So for there, just a second, I'll stop. This happens. That evening, quails fly in, came in and covered the camp. And then, there are some people who try to come up with explanations for these things, and some for the some for the manna don't really hold hold much water. There's a certain tree they say maybe the sap off this tree or whatever. Those are just grasping for explanations. But the quail, I do believe there may be a natural explanation. There's a certain time that quail will cross this gulf there, and by the time they get all the way across, they just they're exhausted and they just drop on the ground and they can't even move. You just go up and gather them up, and people have been doing that for years. They catch them and they preserve the meat and stuff like that. And maybe that's what happened here. Now the fact that the Lord had it happen on that very day is his hand in this providing for them. But it's very interesting. Quails just come in. They're not going out and finding them in the bushes and hunting them or setting traps for them. They just fly into them. And then this dew that lifts, and there's a fine substance there that's left over after that. And they say, what is it? And that's the name manna is going to mean what is it? We're going to see that. And Moses says, well, this is your bread the Lord has provided for you today. So this hasn't been on the ground every morning up until now. All of a sudden, the next day, so that thwarts a lot of the different ideas that may be behind that. It seems like that we're going to see this manna every day, and they're going to have certain instructions about it day after day. It seems like the quail was this one time. Quail didn't fly in every single evening and cover the camp. I don't believe the way I read it. Maybe you read it differently, but this was this instance. But the manna that we're going to see is going to happen every day other than the Sabbath day. And it mentions an omer for each person. They had a certain quota that was mentioned a minute ago, 2 quarts roughly. Is that what I saw in, I think it's Bob's book, a little more than 2 quarts per person. So you took according to the people that are in your tent. That's what you gathered, a certain amount. So those are the instructions. It's there. They're giving the instructions. We're going to see how they handle, like he said, following those instructions here in the next few verses. You want to take over in 17?
Yep. All right, so let's 17 through 21. And the people of Israel did so. They gathered some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over. Whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over till the morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. Okay, so they're provided for. They know the instructions. What do?
They don't quit.
Right. Some of them don't listen. Right now, is it all of them? I don't know, but it's enough to where it's a problem. They don't listen. Okay. Now, the ones who did listen, how did it work out for them? Exactly how it should. Right. It was exactly what they needed, no more, no less, which is great. The ones who didn't listen and they tried to, save up some for the next day, which is that understandable for us from a human perspective? Yeah. Absolutely. It's like we've been hungry. We've not had anything. We now have something. Let's save it up. Make sure it lasts. Does it last? What happens to it?
Stinks.
Yeah, it gets worms and stinks. All right, that's the stuff that they saved. What about the stuff they didn't save? They just left out on the ground. It melts away. All right, I think this goes back to Sheila's point. What is God trying to get across here? They have enough for the day. He'll provide for them every day. Okay? And they need to be reminded of that, I think, every day. God is providing for me today. Every day they go out and gather, he's providing for me today. And they don't need to think, well, I was such a good storer or things like that. We depend upon God. And I think that's the point it's trying to get across here. And some of them have to learn that the hard and smelly way, but they're going to learn it.
Anything else?
It's a constant state of dependence too, because it's day by day by day by day.
Yep.
So, they're just God is teaching them to constantly depend on me. Day after day, if you don't have ebbs and flows, you got to rely on me every day.
Yeah.
So you're not going to...
And that should be more than just food, right? It should be rely on me in everything. But I think this is maybe the first step is rely on me in food. And then when we get to later to the law, he wants it to carry over to the law. Now, they do about as well with the law as they've done right here with depending upon God. But I think the point is to build and say, you can trust me, keep trusting me, obey me.
All right, so let's pick up
You
there.
want me to do the next section too?
If you want to. You can. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Well, I'll go ahead and do the next part since it kind of goes with that. So we'll start in 22. So on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil. And all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning." So they laid it aside till the morning, as Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh, which is a Sabbath, there will be none." On the seventh day some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. All right. So we've just dealt with the day-by-day normal kind of routine. What's the routine what's supposed to be the routine on the 6th day?
Twice as much.
Twice as much, because the 7th day is a rest day. Okay. So they're supposed to rest on the 7th day. So they got to gather up enough to last them 2 days. All right. Now, does everybody do this? No.
No.
Can we maybe understand the logic of the people who didn't do this? Yes and no.
Last time I did that.
That's right.
I tried that
Trial
on the
and error.
first day and it
Last
didn't
time I
work.
tried it, it did not work out well. So I'm not doing it again. But the problem is, it's not, what they're not getting across is they're not learning to obey the Lord. What they think they're learning is how the food works. And that's not what they're supposed to be learning right now. It's not how the food works, it's what God has told them to do. That's what they're supposed to be responding to. And that's not what they're responding to right now. They're responding to maybe their noses or their bellies, right? Stank. It's like, I don't want to smell that again. But they should be responding to the Lord's instructions. And that's what's keeping them from, being happy and in comfortable conditions. So, I had something else I wanted to say about that, and I think I forgot it. Oh, yes. Okay, so they didn't do it. How does God feel about it this time?
How long do you refuse to keep my commandments?
Yeah, does he seem irritated here? Yes. So I just want to point out, the first time when they complained about the water, he made a comment about them grumbling. "I've heard your grumbling." He doesn't seem angry or even necessarily irritated to me yet. He's like, "Okay, I'll provide." Here, he said, "Look, I gave you specific instructions." We know he was trying to test them. "I gave you specific instructions, and you didn't listen the first time, and then you didn't listen the second time either. So why are you not listening to my commandments?" So he's getting irritated here. And I think we're going to see that maybe build a little bit more in the next kind of big story we get to. But the people need to learn to listen. And they will on this. They'll learn to listen and gather what they need. But they just had to learn the hard way.
Like children.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Testing. Let me see if this really works this way.
Maybe that's why they're called the children of Israel.
Is he mad at Moses? I mean, was Moses supposed to go and like make sure?
I think Moses is relaying the message.
I think
He's
so.
mad at the,
It's not really.
yeah,
I
he's a
think
mediator. Yeah.
when he's saying this, he's trying to speak through Moses. Yeah. But it does say he said it to Moses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the same thing, but
Yeah, God could have just put it on the shelves, right? Put it in there. They could have woke up every morning to a jar full of manna. Why didn't he just do that? Because as he was just saying there, the Lord's trying to teach them to trust in Him, to follow the instructions the way that He has asked them to do it, and He requires some action on their part, and it's like the blood on the doorpost. Did the Lord need that? He didn't need there to be blood to make sure that he knew where to go and where not to go. It was an instruction on their part. And when that one happened, remember how we talked about how careful would you have been to make sure that you did that one exactly the way that it was said to be done. And this is just another example. He's requiring them to do something, even though it's him doing all the heavy lifting here. They have to go through and do it the way that he asked them to, and they're learning to do that.
It's a small thing right now compared to what he's gonna ask them.
Yeah. So look at verse 31 there. It says, "And the house of Israel called its name manna, and it was like white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey." Lonnie used to always describe it as like cornflakes. I don't know if that's a legit description, but that was the closest thing he could say that he would. Obviously not exactly like that, but something. It was a sweet, small, sweet wafer. Sound like it tastes like wafers made with honey. So Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Fill an omer with it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a pot, put an omer of manna in it, and lay it up for the Lord to be kept for your generations." As the Lord commanded Moses, and Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And I'll finish and then we'll make a comment. The children of Israel ate manna 40 years. This is Moses telling the story after the fact, right? That he writes this down. So he goes ahead and includes this. They ate it for 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. So they do things along the way. They have feasts that the Lord is setting up, and they save some of this manna, an omer of it, to be used in the future when there is no more manna, as a reminder of these situations and what has happened here. And they put back an omer of it. And God's going to continue to do this for 40 years. We have a lot of other stories that are going to happen during that period of time. But for 40 years, he does this every single day, other than the Sabbath day. 40 years is a long time, though, to eat this, but
And they'll say that.
they didn't, I can see why they would say that, but they don't starve, do they, anymore?
You want to go ahead?
Let's go through maybe 7. Get through 7 and then.
That'll work. All right, so let's read the first 7 verses 17. Oh, do y'all have any more comments about 16?
Verse 34, the testimony. What it said there? Is this like just saying this will be kept back when they have it looking forward, or because I'm not aware of them having any type of written law or anything
I
at
think-
this point in time?
Yes. So I think that's probably the case. Well, even here, mine says testimony to be kept, right? So maybe the idea is, maybe that just means you're keeping it till the future. But
Because, when they build the ark, these items will go into the ark.
yes,
It will serve as a testimony in the future.
Yeah. I didn't know if that's correct, what y'all thought about that.
I think it's like a memorial kind of thing to be kept.
That's a big deal, I think, right now. Keep the Passover in the future so that you can, when your children ask you, why do we do this? Or why do we have to kill the firstborn of this cow or whatever? Explain to them why you're doing this. I think it's just I think it kind of goes in that category in my mind. But
I think that's what I'm thinking too. But does that answer what you're asking, or were you thinking a different line than what we just said?
Well, when I think testimony, I think of law.
Okay. See, I was thinking it more on the lines of
Whether it was referring to, the stone tablets or just, something that will be recorded, written down.
okay. So I was thinking more as almost like an explanation's right word. An experience, like you're telling. So a
your
testimony-
account of something.
yeah. So this is to remember the things that happen. This is something to help us remember. I don't know.
That could be.
That's what I was thinking.
I have a reference for number 17:10. Lord said to Moses, "Bring Aaron's rod back before the testimony to be kept as a sign." Anyway, again, something to be kept as a sign there. It references that, so a reminder maybe or something.
All right. Chapter 17. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of Sin by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I shall stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink it." So Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the quarreling of the people of Israel, and because they tested the Lord by saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" All right, so we're in a new story, same story. What did they do? The people, what do? They complain. What is it this time? They're thirsty again. Now, is this a different circumstance than the previous time? Yes.
There was water there.
There was water before. It was just bitter water. Now, is there any prospect that, I think maybe they've even learned the lesson. If there's bitter water, God can make it where it's drinkable. But what's happening here? There's no water. So how's it going to make that drinkable? So they complain. And they're complaining against Moses. And it's apparently pretty harsh, because how does Moses feel about this? He feels threatened.
Like they're going to stone him.
They're going to stone me. They're going to try to kill me. So he goes to the Lord and says, "What am I going to do about this?" How does the Lord respond to this?
He gives him a way to fix the problem.
That's right. He gives them a way to fix what. You notice how in all these circumstances, they're complaining against the Lord, and we look at them and say, "Have you not learned your lesson?" The answer is no. They haven't learned their lesson yet. But we look at that and we're like, how does God not destroy them? But he continues to have mercy on them, and not only not destroy them, but every time he's fulfilling their needs. He's meeting their complaints and giving them what they need. Now, how does he deal with it in this situation?
He goes before Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he tells Moses to gather the elders. I will be with you.
Yes.
To strike the rock.
That's right.
And water's
Which is normal, right?
no.
No. I imagine pretty much everything we've talked about here tonight has not been normal. So I imagine if you find, I don't know necessarily what it means by bitter. Maybe it just means that it was nasty water, or maybe it means it's water that made people sick, or maybe it's poisonous. I don't know. But I imagine most of the time when you throw a log into water, is it going to become drinkable? No. And I've never tried it, but I just imagine that's not the case. And I would imagine that if I started saying, like, I want meat and bread, I probably should not expect quail to start, falling out of the sky, and then manna to be on the ground the next morning. I don't think I should expect it. And then same here. If I go outside with the staff and hit a rock, am I expecting water to come out? No. What's the point in all of these? Yes. He is their God. He will provide. He is in control. And they need to listen to it. Again, going back to something I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try to wrap it up, so if you have anything to say, you can say it. He said earlier, "I am your healer." And I think the idea is I'm the one that provides for you. I'm the one that keeps you healthy. But what was the condition on that? They had to obey him. All right. Has he proven he's their healer? Yes. So what should their response be? They should obey him, right? He's proven it over and over again. They should obey him. Now we'll see if that happens or not, but he's proven his part. Right.
Yeah, they need water. I think there's a difference in praying to the Lord for water or asking for water instead of the names there, tempting and contention, are the names of this place. And they tempted the Lord and said, "Is he among us or not?" You know, almost sarcastically. The way that they act when they get in these situations is not respectful, as it should be.
That's a great point. So God was testing them earlier, and what do they do to God? They test him next. And I think that's kind of interesting. So before he's testing them, God tested him. No.
Look at that, these water men are asking for water, but they bypass them, the one that can tell them, dehydrated, their leaders.
Yeah. That's right.
All right. The time is up. We'll pick back up verse 8.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.